He separates. He's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Florida State. Warwick got up third down.
Winky looking Winky. Wants to throw the knockout punch to Warwick. Warwick open. Touchdown. He does a touchdown. He did catch it. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh, Peter Warwick, how'd you do that?
Kermit Whitfield to the left side. A hole to the 30. Kermit Whitfield to the 30. To the 20. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown at the zone. Kermit Whitfield. A 100-yard touchdown.
Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the other.
It's caught. It's caught. It's caught.
For the end zone battle. Coleman. Touchdown.
We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it big all over the country, all over the world. And I'm proud. I'm proud to say I'm a Florida State Seminole.
The Garnet and Old Show members only edition. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. I'm Ryan. That's Vince. Vince, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, Ryan. And for all of our members out there that may be mothers, happy Mother's Day. Or even if you were just a mother figure to someone, happy Mother's Day. I spent some good time today at my mom's house. And she lives out in Lake City, Florida. Spent some time over there, had a great time. My daughters and the grandparents, other grandparents, are in Greece right now on a trip. So happy Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, Laura, who's in Greece with my daughters. And of course, happy Mother's Day to my fantastic wife, Shannon.
Very good. I'm glad you got
it
Mother's
out.
Day wishes out of the way. And if you're watching the show, that means that you are likely a YouTube member. And part of that is you get 2 extra shows a month, private shows that we do just for you guys, to keep up with the Garnet and Old boys. We got to do some extra, give you guys some extra love for supporting us. So tonight I had this idea to kind of do this fun, nostalgic trip down memory lane and go over either our favorite games or moments from games. It can be either or. So even if it didn't end in a victory or a technical W, certain memories stick out to us. And I'm sure when we go back and forth, Vince, some of them are memories for different reasons, where you were when you saw them, who you were with. I know that's specific to some of mine. So I try to go a little bit more deep cut. I'm the guy when I listen to an album and everyone's like, what's your favorite song? I never say the radio hits. I'm always like, it's the 10th best song on the album, but I think it's the best. That's where I kind of went. And I tried to avoid the big hitters, and it's good because you hit a lot of those big hitters for me. So it's going to be a good bounce. And you don't know any of I put together all the clips, so all your clips, and I know your clips, but you don't really know all of my clips.
Yeah, that's right. And it was tough for me, and I posted this, when you sent the notification out about the show. I replied to it and just said, it's tough to whittle this down. And so when it's tough to whittle down, if you're really talking about the top 5, they were, for me, some of the ones that you would expect, but it's not. And you'll see, we're gonna talk about it, but it's not for the reasons necessarily that you expect. But yeah, and how blessed are we, Ryan, and how blessed is this fan base?
Yeah,
to have just a plethora of options to pick from, for the Mount Rushmore of games or moments or memories or what have you. So. It was really tough. And when you first sent me the text message asking me about that, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to need a little more time. But then I didn't overthink it.
Yeah, it's just a fun exercise. I like to do more granular type shows for our members only, unless there is some big breaking piece of news. But we're kind of in the off season right now. And there's not a whole lot of lawsuit updates that we don't want to say for the Thursday show. So definitely, this is a good time. Also, it's a good time because it's a members only show, which means we're not monetizing it from a broader spectrum. Is we can show video clips and they can get flagged for content, and it doesn't matter because we're not monetizing it.
Yes.
It's the only way we can do this.
Hence the intro.
Yeah.
Right. The intro that you saw at the beginning was our original 45-second intro to the show, and you're like, well, I've never seen that before. And that's because when we got to the point where we're able to monetize the show, YouTube said, you can't use these clips. These are copyrighted. So that is why that intro no longer exists for our show.
But it could exist if we ever do shows like this for our members only, because
sure. Yeah.
we're not trying to earn views. We're
not
trying to keep our members happy. And that's what we're here to do. Now, we did each pick 5. However, we both picked honorable mentions because, listen, it's hard to whittle it down. And I was on the borderline with some of my memories. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play the video, and then it's going to go full screen. So we can all relive it together, like in full screen. Now, some of them, it really, really plays to the Garnet and old side of things, because
it really does.
Are in the 90s, and a lot of my clips are from the 2000s, which is why I kind of did this graphic where you have, the Bobby Bowden, Jimbo Fisher, and Mike Norvell. And unlike a lot of people who, of course,
we're missing one.
I have, no, I understand that. We just left him out. I have a lot of good memories about the Jimbo Fisher era, and I think we can all agree that the last year or 2 years sucked. But there's a lot of good memories in there, including a national championship. So it's okay to relive some of the fun times in the climb, no pun intended, during the Jimbo Fisher era too. So, Vince, are you ready to at least start off with the honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's do it. Been looking forward to this all day. Let's get to it.
All right, this is my first honorable mention.
2 ticks left in regulation time. Francois to throw for the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown. Naquan Murray not going to settle for the field goal.
Listen, if Jabril Peppers had played in that game, I don't know if we would have won.
Yeah, he was out. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do. I've heard that.
But listen, I consider this game, and this is why I picked this as an honorable mention, as the last vestige of what was left of the magic of the Jimbo Fisher era, where there was talent on that roster, mismanaged as it was, where we, even with
discombobulated,
with all the dysfunction, Vince,
a lot,
we got a 10-win season that year in 2016 in the Orange Bowl against Michigan. And to have that kind of year where we had losses to Louisville, where we got trounced, we got beaten at home with a walk-off field goal against North Carolina, right? There's a lot of, and we lost to Clemson, right?
Promissory notes.
Promissory notes. There was a lot of stuff happening that season. You had the DeAndre Francois kind of being a diva and like crying, and his lineman trying to pick him up and him slapping their hands away. There was a lot of going on, but I remember the feeling, Vince, when I watched that game, the Orange Bowl, and we beat them. I had so much hope, and a lot of people forget, even though it was Jimbo Fisher's last year, going into 2017, we were ranked like number 3 in the country.
Yes, we were. Yep.
And we were heading into the showdown against Alabama thinking that we had a chance to win, and we did have a chance to win in that game. DeAndre ended up getting hurt.
And there was a ridiculous pass interference call that was not called.
So as bad as that season ended up being, with James Blackman, Jimbo Fisher leaving, and there was so much hope in that offseason that had Vince and I known each other, which we did not know each other yet, I'm sure we would have been saying, hey, listen, I think we might have a team here to go. And I was so excited going into that year, thinking DeAndre was going to take his next step. He was going to have the whole year as the starter. We were really excited about some of the receivers, Naquan Murray being one of them. And so much hope was destroyed. But in this moment, Vince, at the end of the Orange Bowl, as a Nole, I was happy and I felt like we were on the right path still. And that was the last time I felt that until Mike Norvell's second season.
Yeah, going back to that, obviously I was happy we won the game. And there's a feeling in that game that I had that was kind of like, even as dysfunctional as we are still going to win this game. Mm-hmm. That means that the talent was there, right? But the talent eventually could not overcome the culture and ultimate lack of character on that staff to dictate it to the roster.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. And of course, Francois being hurt at the beginning of the next season didn't help. But I don't imagine the season would have gone too much better, even if he wasn't hurt.
Yeah, maybe 1.5 games.
Yeah, maybe
on the spread. Yeah,
maybe
he would have still left. Jimbo still would have left, and nothing would have changed. But
he was always looking for the exit.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to put that game in there because I felt good at the end of that game. I felt really
for
happy.
Sure. You beat Michigan in a bowl game
without Jabbar Peppers.
Without Drew. I mean, I get it. I mean, we might not have scored a point if he had played in that game, but okay.
All right. Are you ready for yours, Vince? This is Vince's first honorable. If you're wondering why that music was so quaint, it's because it's impossible to find individual clip highlights of old Florida State games. So you have to go to like the films that people have made. And that's what we were doing. Now, I love Vince. Who was that made that juke at the end of that play there?
Oh, man, I was cracking up at the music, to be honest with you. Who was that? Go back and show it again.
One more time. Let's roll back for the music. Enjoy. Number 88.
That's Kes McCorvey, Sweet Feet, Kes McCorvey. Some of the greatest.
That guy look silly on that.
Oh, some of the greatest feet you'll ever see, by the way. So for me, Georgia Tech. So going this a long way. We're going back. You have to remember, Charlie Ward was a punter when he was first on the team, and back in those times, quarterbacks didn't start until they were juniors. Like you had to wait. You had to wait your turn. And then when Charlie Ward came on the scene and he started playing the position, they almost didn't know what to do with him. Right? He was immensely talented and skilled and elusive and fast and could throw. They didn't know what he was everything that you expect of a quarterback nowadays. Back in 1992.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what to do with him. This is the game where they figured it out.
Yeah.
This is the game.
The birth of what they call the up tempo off or whatever they call it.
They called it not the hurry up, not the shotgun. I forget even what they called it at the time. But this was the game where they're like, you know what? Let's put him in the shotgun and see what can happen. And we were losing. In that game. And so I was there, of course, as a member of the Chiefs. I just remember these are the reasons why these things are memories for me. I remember being in that stadium and there being a giant inflatable yellow jacket.
Of course.
In the end zone, right? It was huge. It was like a Macy's Day balloon.
Yeah.
And so we're losing this game, and we're losing this game. We're losing this game, and they finally put him in the shotgun, and they win.
Yeah,
and they pull it out. And what I vividly remember, is them deflating the bee,
metaphorically and really.
Metaphorically, and it took like 28 minutes to deflate this giant yellow jacket, and it was just an amazing memory. And it really was the catalyst of what was about to happen. I remember also in the Tallahassee Democrat, it might have been even that week, that Sunday, maybe after the game, they had a full page spread, and the picture on the front was Charlie in the shotgun, and the headline was "Pocket Protector."
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
and that was the start of what would be history.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when they figured it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And similar to how you were talking, because didn't FSU already have like 2 losses that year or 3 losses, something like that?
Well, I mean, that was wide right 2.
Yep.
So there was at least 1 loss
Yeah.
in that season.
I thought they had another one. He threw like 5 picks or something wild.
Yeah, I mean, the Clemson game was close, but we won that game as well. I'm not typically your FSU stats guy.
Yeah. I just remember with the moments.
I remember the moments. So they were 11-1.
Yeah.
So and they ended up ranked 3rd.
Yeah.
I believe. So that the only loss that year, of course, was Miami, wide right 2.
Now, my next honorable mention, Vince, I want everyone to keep in mind that I graduated from high school in 2006. So smack dab in the beginning of what we would consider the lost decade, where it would be because there were some good moments up until I would say 2003. Chris Ricks and all that stuff. Even though we didn't reach the pinnacles, we were still 10+ win team, which it might have been disappointing, but it was like, okay, we're still doing good, right? But certain times in your FSU fandom, you have to find bright spots in the muck. And I remember being at my dad's house for this next one, and it was probably I was still at Daytona State College getting my AA, but I was going to be going to Florida State the next season. And this game, I'll never forget.
Rush here on this 2nd down and 7. Intercepted. That could do it. Touchdown, Florida State. Gino Hayes, their All-American linebacker, picks it off. And that will spell doom probably for another number 2 team. What is it about number 2 this year?
So let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Was that video blurry or is it my eyes?
That was pre-HD. So the next season became HD time. That's when we started seeing the good copies. And there is no other better copy of that moment. Vince, Boston College was number 2 in the country. Matt Ryan, Heisman.
Matt Ryan.
Right. He was on the cover of NCAA football the next year. In fact, the video game. Boston College was riding high. Now, this was the season where you had Pat White in West Virginia lose against Pitt, I think.
Yep.
And you had there was one other team that lost at the very tail end. I think it was Notre Dame against Matt Leinart on the Bush Push was that year, I believe. Whatever it was, I remember there was a lot of top teams losing near the end of the season. And I went into this game, Vince, part of being in the muck, no expectation of winning. None. In fact, at this point, I had given up all hope on the season. I felt like we were lost. And me and my dad predicted, because it was a late start game. I think it was a 7:30 or 8 o'clock kick. And we were expecting, like, we're going to go to bed at halftime because we'll probably be losing. And I remember we ended up staying up talking for like an hour after that game because of how exciting the ending it was. And it was all over sport. Back then, after the game was over, you would immediately watch SportsCenter and just watch the replays over and over again. And I'll never forget going to bed being like, there's still hope. Like it's not all terrible. It's not all doom and gloom. We just beat the number 2 team in the country. That's something. And I remember leaning onto that. So that was a good moment for me.
Hold on. Now think about this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, you just said something that is like maybe almost like mind-blowing for people that have not been watching college football for that long.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Boston College was ranked number 2?
Yeah, Matt Ryan was awesome in college.
Amazing stuff right there.
All right. We're about to head into Vince's final honorable mention before we get into both of our top 5 moments. So let's go. This one's a little bit longer, 35 seconds. I want to play it out, though.
Done. He's got the first down. He's close to a touchdown. Out of bounds at the 2-yard line. Maybe they just get up and ride, as Willie calls it, the old city of New Orleans over there. However, this is the chance for him to put it away. They give it to Williams. He does not budge it. Yes, he did. Yeah, he did, too. He fell down. Second effort. He wiggled off the top and fell over the side and rolled into the end zone.
I'll never forget those Steve Spurrier looks when he lost to us every time. Like, he always had that same look.
It's that smirk. It's the Spurrier smirk when he knows he doesn't have an answer to what was going on that day. And what was going on that day was a complete and utter obliteration of Danny Warfel. It was unbelievable, and so much so that that Steve Spurrier like complained about it over and over and over again leading into the bowl game. That was the infamous, we hit to the echo of the whistle.
Yeah.
That's where that all came from.
Yeah.
And there is one particular play during that game where Florida snaps the ball, and I forget who it was, but knifed through over the center and just completely obliterated him before he had a chance to get to his second drop back step.
Yeah.
So the defense was completely in tune for that game. And so honorable mention, why? The reason why is this was a number 1 versus a number 2 game in Tallahassee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was there were a lot of people that didn't give Florida State much of a chance in that game. And to be honest with you, Florida had a better team that season.
Yeah.
And the fact that game was at home and the way the defense played, I've said this for years and years and years. There are 2 seasons where, in my opinion, between Florida State and Florida, that the lesser team had no business winning the game.
Yeah.
96, Florida State had no business winning that game. And then the very next year in 97, Florida had no business winning that game against Florida State.
Yeah.
But they did. And that's the rivalry part about it. Now, of course, we're completely ecstatic. And there was some major funkiness going on in games that week and then the following week that allowed Florida to get back into the national title hunt.
Yeah.
Where they had to play us again. And that was the game where a number of our players were sick, had the flu. And not to say we would have won the game, and that's not what I'm saying at all, but it wouldn't have been 52-20, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's an honorable mention game. That's a game where the team rose above and completely, shut the door on an opponent, and that opponent happened to be a hated rival. The problem, though, was they got a mulligan. They got a mulligan for the bowl game.
I love it. I love Steve Spurrier looking blankly into the distance. It's always my favorite. All right, we're getting into the good stuff now. Not that the other ones weren't good, but this is the creme de la creme. Now, this next one for me is one of my favorite players. I was with one of my favorite people, and it was during a very, very good time of year. Let's hit it.
Very confusing for the offensive line. They let Brandon Jenkins run free for a lost yardage play. Garcia looking back to the sideline to get the signals that are coming in. Third down, as we mentioned, they need the 16-yard line. Good protection out in the flat. Latimer loses the football. Picked up by Florida State on the far sideline. A block on the quarterback, and now he comes across field. And can he take it the distance? Kendall Smith finally stopped just inside the 30-yard line. And let's go back down the field. Latimer is down.
All right. My man, G5, Greg Reed. Now, for those of you who went to school at the same time I did, Greg Reed and Christian Ponder were pretty much your only shining moments that you really remember. Greg Reed, and I wish to this day he hadn't gotten kicked off the team, was such an electric player, by far the best punt returner in my decade that I'd ever seen. You can argue, Dion, kickoff return specialist and everything. But in my era, Greg Reed was like a 50-50 touchdown on a punt return or kickoff return. And he makes that kind of hit. The guy's this small. Marcus Lattimore had been built up in the pregame. I mean, Marcus Lattimore was a legitimate player in the SEC. and South Carolina was having a good year. Now, from Florida State's standpoint, this was our first real feeling that we were scaling up to a potential, like we're getting back to the national championship feelings. Like we're starting to compete again. We're starting to get to play in ACC championships. Like this is when it started happening. So I was pumped up. Why it really resonates with me, not only is my favorite player, but this is the first bowl game I ever watched with Kristen, my wife. We had only met a month and a half prior, and I watched this game. It was around Christmas time at her apartment, and it was our first time getting to like really like watch a bowl game together and celebrate when it happened. And so it was a very like nice time of year with someone that was, brand new in my life, and now I'm still married. We're looking back, it's 14 years later, and we're married. But that was the start. That was like one of my early memories of spending time with Kristen, Greg Reed, and then I really felt like that was a launching point for what we saw Jimbo do in the next few years with recruiting and getting players. And Vince, do you remember that moment? And by the way, this is huge because Marcus Lattimore was like done for the game.
Yeah, I do remember that, because I was at the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the game visiting. We spent New Year's with some friends of ours that live outside of the Atlanta area, and we went to the game. And remember, just like Ryan said, like we were getting better. The team was getting better, right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't really a lot of conference championship aspirations or anything like that. And South Carolina was a good team
that year. Yeah, they won 10 games that year.
Christian Ponder, remember, he got hurt.
Yeah, it was EJ Manuel.
And EJ Manuel had to come in and play that. And Taiwan Easterling caught a pass in that game. If you remember that name.
Oh, I love Taiwan.
And that particular play, looking back, the things I remember about that game, I remember that hit. And I remember him being laid out, and afterward understanding that, like his teeth went through his lip. Like there was a lot of stuff that came out about what physically happened to him. But the other thing I remember, other than being with friends, is that they were launching cows with parachutes out of the dome,
like the game,
the Chick-fil-A game, and there were these cows in parachutes coming out, and they had coupons and gift cards and whatever. So, but yeah, that's a great memory. Seeing EJ play and pull that game out. It was kind of a launching pad for the next year.
Yeah, especially with at that time, Jimbo Fisher still wasn't proven, and we started to see the talent.
He was still in.
Yeah, he was bloodshot eyes, losing his hair. It was peak Jimbo time right then. And
he didn't care about hair at that time. He only cared about winning.
I still don't know how a man that size of Greg Reed lays out like people like he did. Greg Reed was on the regular hitting people, and I always appreciated it. And man, to this day, he's one of my, Vince, I'm not even joking, top 5 player for me because of how much he was during that time period.
Yeah, which game was that? It was in Doak where he laid somebody out on a kickoff return or something and stood over them.
NC State. Yeah.
And he didn't. I don't think he did it to be
he just
rude.
Didn't.
He just was shocked about what happened, and he got flagged for it.
Yeah.
So,
all right, I'm excited about this next one because it would have been on my list, but I wanted to give Vince his props in the '90s. So. Vince is number 5.
The 10th is enough for Bobby Bowden as he calls on the freshman from Colorado. Bentley splits the uprights.
$1993, Vince. What a year.
1993. First of all, check the hat.
There you go. He switched in the middle of the commercial break.
It's like a Taylor Swift concert where I'm switching garb between songs. And I know about that because I have daughters.
Yeah.
I was at the game, Ryan. How blessed am I, right? How blessed am I to be a member of the Chiefs and be able to be at that game and see that happen? There's a lot of anxiety and angst and turmoil and, when is it ever going to be us? Yeah. When is it ever going to be us? It's like we've had the teams. We've had the talent. we've had the coaching staff, we've had the wins, but we just could not get over the hump. And even that year, we lost a game that year as well. Yeah, I'm Nell Carter. Remember Nell Carter, Ryan?
I do. I've
Nell
heard
Carter.
the name.
Nell Carter from Give Me a Break was at the Orange Bowl. She was like the celebrity guest, whatever. I don't know, but I remember obviously winning the championship, right? Is what you're trying to do.
Yep.
You understand the drama about that, right? He makes the kick, and then we have to kick off, and the guy runs it back, and Bobby's thinking we've won it. I was like, no, we're going to put one more second back on the clock because he went down, and Derek Brooks should have tackled him 1 second later. And then the guy lines up for the kick, and I still have this bandana. I had a bandana that I'm in the end zone where the guy's kicking, right? And I'm in the end zone, and I've got the bandana over my eyes because I don't want to watch. But then I peeked up through the bandana to watch this kick go completely left. And then it was just complete and utter just relief. So 1993 national championship.
Finally.
Bobby got it. And I was there, man. Again, how blessed am I?
All right. We're going into number 4, and I'm going to set the stage for this one because this one would not be on anyone's list, I don't think. This is where I pull out a deep cut that, for whatever reason, I'll never forget it. It's weird because certain moments you're like infinitely forgettable season or time of year, but for whatever reason, it just sticks in your head where you were. So, Vince, I was at AJ's to start with. I'd started watching this game at AJ's.
Second floor, bottom?
Bottom floor.
Okay.
I wasn't much of the dance floor guy. But we wanted to watch the game. So it was the whole watch a little bit of the game and then we'll head back to the apartment and have a party. I remember a monsoon of a thunderstorm hits. And it's one of those it goes commercial and we're like, all right, let's get in the car, right? And we have to run through flood, it's lightning, really bad lightning and thunder. So we're soaked, me and my roommates, we get in the car. We're only probably 45 seconds from our apartment. We lived right off Tharp. So it was right there. We get in. 2 of my roommates had stayed home and they had never gone to the bar. So I walk in, and keep in mind, when I left, we were losing badly. As I walk in, this play happens.
Ponder gets protection, takes a shot down the field, and has a man wide open. Rod Owens still on his feet. End zone ahead, touchdown, 98 yards.
Now that's how you stay on the same page.
From the end zone.
I love the little at the end, Ponder getting the handshake done. So as I walk in, he's snapping the ball, and I'm like, "What did I miss?" And it's Rod Owens, and he almost falls, and we're like, "Oh no, And we came back to win that game, Vince, which is the game we were not predicted to win, and we were still in the heat of the ACC Atlantic at that time to make it to the ACC championship. Now we did not that year,
right?
But we were still in a tiebreaker scenario where it had a team. I think that was the year Calvin Johnson with Georgia Tech was lighting it up.
Yeah,
and we needed them to lose their final game, and they didn't. So, but I remember walking in. So at the end of this game, we still had a shot to compete in the ACC Atlantic. And listen, I was a big CP7 for Heisman guy. I had the shirt. Okay. I had the I believe CP7 shirt. Okay. On the road from your own end zone, Christian Ponder, Rod Owens, who by the way is the reason why I have an entire ball signed with every signature from that team that year, is because Rod Owens was his girlfriend was friends with my girlfriend at the time. And she handed the ball to her friend who gave it to Rod Owens, and he got it signed by everyone. So I always appreciate him for doing that. And an underrated player during that time when we, again, in the muck a little bit.
Rod Owens, also known as Old School.
Old School.
Old School Rod Owens. Yeah. Lots of great memories of him and, that game as well. It's weird sometimes when we talk about how games and again, back to being blessed to be a fan of this team, how games keep us in the hunt.
Yeah.
We typically don't have that, right? It's either we are the hunted or we're completely out of it for a short span of time. There wasn't a lot of seasons where if this breaks right and this breaks right, we're kind of in it.
And that was 2009, Vince.
Yeah, 2009. Yep.
So again, we were still in the hunt. That was the Chris Thompson year where he was lighting things up.
Was that the year Chris Thompson
hurt his neck?
Right, but was that the year that in the Miami game he ran for 2 successive plays of plus 80 yards?
Yes. That entire year, Vince, that team, 2009 FSU, was a big play, but couldn't stop anyone on defense.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll never forget it. And again, no one would probably ever have this on their top FSU moments of all time, but it's because I walked in soaking wet with a bunch of friends, my roommate, about to party the night away, and walked into that, and we ended up winning the game. I mean, what else could you ask for when you're a college student, right?
Yeah. I don't think that was the year of Chris Thompson. I think that might have been a different year. But yes, when you have moments like that during your season that are not necessarily going to be the greatest season of all time, those stick out, man. Those stick out even more because you don't have a lot to hang your hat on.
Yeah. Perfect. Now, this one that we're about to do for your number 4, I think it's in all of our minds.
Now, Cannell. Clock starts. Right sideline. Got him out of bounds at the 48. 17 seconds. McCarvey. 17 seconds. Cannell steps up against the pressure. Got to get the first down to stop the clock. And he didn't get it. The clock is going to continue to run with 10 seconds. He's got to stop this baby.
Line up and down it.
He's got to down it. It's going to run out on him. Didn't do it. This game is over. A 31-31 tie. A 31-31 tie.
Come on, man.
Vince, how much would you have killed for either Danny Cannell to have gotten that first down or to have overtime rules like we do have today?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely destined to be a win for us. I mean, many people, I mean, I consider that a win. I mean,
I do too, yeah.
Anytime you are getting the bejesus beaten out of you by your rival and you come back to do that, that is a win. You ask any Gator fan, they do not consider that a tie.
Yeah.
They consider that a loss because they had us by the throat and they let us off the hook. They let us off the hook.
Danny Cannell that close to a first at 1 yard, man.
Yeah, he wasn't known for being fleet of foot, but there was a touchdown he ran in that game.
Yeah. It was not
that he ran in. No, it wasn't. I think it was, I don't know if we were like 8-9 yards out. It might have been up to 12 yards out that he actually ran in. And that might have been the 3rd touchdown of the 4 in a row that we scored. I was not at that game, Ryan. I was already graduated, and I was in my first job as a band director at Lemon Bay High School in Inglewood, Florida. And that weekend was the well-known Venice Christmas Parade. And I spent the first half of that game watching the first half at my home in Naples, Florida with my family, and completely disgusted.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you this backstory because other than it being the choke at Doak, which is memorable in and of itself, this is another reason why this memory is etched with me. I left at halftime because I had to drive from Naples to Venice, which is maybe about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes or so. I had to get to Venice for this parade. And as I'm driving up I-75, I'm listening to Gene Deckerhoff on the radio. I'm listening to us come back. And as I'm starting my journey, there are a lot of Gator fans on the road. And I've got, stuff on my car. So they are pointing me and laughing at me as we're driving, right? the longer I'm driving, the less I see the Gator cars.
Yeah.
Right. And the more I see Florida State cars, and I actually pulled in to get gas at one point, and there was a Gator fan there. And it's actually right when we scored the third of the fourth touchdowns. So I have a vivid memory of this. Then, of course, we end up tying the game, and I am just beside myself. I am just so happy.
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. And so I'm like, okay, if I had to miss this game, at least we tied it, and I'm going to do this parade and whatever. And so I pull up to the parade site, and I had a good 30 to 40% of my students not show up.
Perfect. Students.
I could have easily skipped that parade. We could have easily not done it, and I could have been at that game and enjoyed it live.
Yeah.
But that's the memory I have, and I know everybody has a lot of memories of that game. If you're a Florida State fan, it's all on the winning side of the ledger, and if you're a Gator fan, you never want to talk about that game ever.
I love it. I have watched that game on replay many times when it's on Gridiron Classics.
Another quick note about that game. Florida State put out a cassette tape of Gene Deckerhoff's call, Gene and Vic Prinzi, of the fourth quarter. It was called The Fourth Quarter Comeback, and it's on a cassette tape. And so I got a copy of it. They sold it at Garnet and Gold. And for years after that, whenever my family and I were driving into Tallahassee for a game, the last 30 minutes of the drive, we would put the tape in and listen to the tape on the way into town. I still have the cassette tape, but I'm smart. I've already converted it to digital. I have it in my iTunes library.
Yeah, because chemically it will deteriorate.
Yes, I have it. I have it digitally in the iTunes library. If anybody wants a copy of that, I'd be willing to share that out.
Yeah, I don't think there's any copyright concerns there.
It's good stuff.
I had to go for my third one, Vince. I had to go to more recent history because I wanted to pull from at least one from the Mike Norvell, Jordan Travis era.
Sure.
And this will be memorable for both of us. And let's take a look.
Now a 2nd and 12. Reverse. Flea flicker opportunity. Downfield. And a touchdown, Pokey Wilson. G-Mac.
Here it comes off. Little stretch, end around, flea flicker. Ball flutters just a hair, but Pokey brings it in. And this.
My favorite part of that still is the disrespect of Pokey Wilson just staring that guy down.
He's looking
he might
at
as
him.
well knelt on his face, teabagged a little bit. That's how you felt, right?
He just looking at him going, you're lucky the ball was a little late.
Yeah,
because you would have looked even looked more silly. Yes, yep. and we don't typically do this, but I'll just say the War Chant Cruise review of this and the flea flicker had me laughing for weeks. So if you haven't, I'm sure you can go back and find that. But hearing Ira talk about the flea flicker was just gold.
And it was really special because Vince and I were both in attendance for that game.
We were.
And I don't know about Vince, because I've only known Vince since 2019, but I myself have never done. That was the longest road trip I've ever done for a Florida State game, Vince. And I was with a bunch of friends, all Florida State fans, sitting in the LSU section. And going into that game, LSU fans were very confident. Very confident.
Well, they're SEC.
Yeah, they're SEC. So, of course, they're going to win. And I remember, Vince, I was even a little nervous because I'm like, okay, we gave up a field goal, right? There, we need a score. And it was severely underthrown. Like not one of Jordan Travis's finest throws. But the disrespect afterwards, I feel like the whole team kind of fed off that energy of, oh, this is not going to go the way you think it's going to go today. Now, it almost did. It took a block kick, which, Vince, I know that wasn't on either one of our lists. I thought it was a little too on the nose for me to pick it as like, again, I like to go to the B-sides a little bit, but the same game, the feeling of you were in the Florida State section, Vince.
I was.
I was surrounded, not a single Florida State fan around me, entire LSU section. And when they were lining up for the final field goal, It was they have already won the game. That was the celebration. I had people pointing.
Extra point. Yeah.
There was a guy pointing at me, and Vince, a very drunk guy who had been sprinting up and down those very steep steps with beers in his hand the whole game, was in the aisle pointing at me and like going, "You got pay attention." And then we block it, and I'll never forget because he went like this, and all the beer fell down from his cups, and he just immediately like started walking downwards. And the good news is, I will never forget this, Vince. Unlike a lot of fans that we've had to play against, Miami fans, the LSU fans, 4 people around me on different areas when they were leaving said, like, great game. You guys deserve it. It was really fun. Like, it was a very welcoming environment of 2 passionate fan bases that did not have any kind of weird, like, over the top hate for each other. So it was just a fun atmosphere. And I think you got that same vibe.
Oh, I did. And I actually went to the game with some family friends of ours that are LSU grads. And the LSU FSU rivalry has been very friendly over the years. Forget about what you see on social media. I've been to Baton Rouge, and I've been to a game there. The deluge of
this game should have been there.
Oh my goodness. So I've been to a game there, and yeah, the fans are great. But I want to throw this picture up real quick.
Stand by.
That picture.
I didn't see a picture. I saw a Garnet. Oh, the picture of you and I.
Yeah, the you and me. Okay. That's from that game.
Yeah.
You and I met at a restaurant. I think you had maybe already had a drink or 5 at that point.
Yeah, I had 5 hand grenades by that point.
Yeah. But yeah, and you know, that's kind of the way these games play out sometimes. And we're going into score and we fumble. You can't let people off the mat.
Yeah.
And we let them off the mat.
Last season.
We let them off the mat, right?
Yeah.
Because we were literally, I mean, my buddy would tell you, we were dominating a lot of that game.
Yeah.
And we just, you know, you cannot let talented teams hang around. And we did, and we were lucky is not the right word. We should have won the game, and we did win the game. But it took something a little crazy for that to happen.
I'm going to make a controversial statement. Agree or disagree, Vince. Jordan Travis's best individual game from top to bottom. I think he was comfortable. It looked like he had no worries in the world during that game. He was just zipping, I'm going to run a little bit. I'm going to throw a little bit. I'm not panicked. I'm like the whole game. I just felt like he had total and complete control of the offense. And keep in mind, we did not know that was going to be Jordan Travis yet.
No, maybe I would say maybe the next LSU game, maybe that.
Yeah, he really showed up for both of those games. But this game, Vince, we were wondering still who Jordan Travis was going to be.
Right.
He had not had his breakout year. He had a fair year the year before, mostly around his legs. And the whole talk, you remember the whole week, can he throw? We got to see him throw. We got to see him throw. And boy, did he throw. I think he had over 400 yards in that game with 3+ touchdowns. And the man just looked very, very calm. And I left that stadium, Vince, feeling like, oh, we're good. I have no worries for this year now. Now, we had some injury luck go up against us, and that caused us to not hit the heights that we wanted to that year. But Jordan Travis, that was his coming out party.
Yeah, it was it was great to be there. New Orleans, come on, man. And I've been to several Florida State games in that city. Yeah. It is a great place to go and hang out with your friends and party and eat. The food is fantastic.
Yeah. I lost
and of course
at Haraz Casino.
Well, that I didn't do any of that. But you know, just being there, being in that city, hearing the music, eating the food, and of course winning. Right. So,
you remember the deluge?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The day before, it was like a hurricane for like 4 hours straight.
It was nuts. And, you know, I don't want to get into the story about the rain, but I have a story about that too. I have stories about everything, but we're not going to get into that.
All right, let's hit your number 3.
Second and goal from the 2. Here's the snap. Charlie runs to his right. Charlie, near the angle. 5, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Charlie Ward. Touchdown, Charlie Ward.
Ward's TD puts the Seminoles up 21-7 early in the second quarter. But that would be all the scoring the offense would do.
The defense owned that game. That's the tale of that tape. Is that 21 points did it?
Yeah, 93 Miami. So, I referenced absolutely. I referenced earlier that there's a lot of anxiety and angst and turmoil and drama because Florida State had been dominant in for years and years and years, but just couldn't get over the hump. And Miami was typically the nemesis. They were the nemesis.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, in 91, when I got to Florida State, I didn't know any better. Like the only thing I'd seen Florida State do was win. And that was wide right 1. And I just remember like barely getting out of bed the next Sunday when we lost.
Isn't it funny when you're a young man, how much more the losses still hurt. But back then, I remember myself in college too, Vince. It was like I was depressed.
Yeah, it hit me way more than it should, right? But that again, love the fan base, right? That's why we are who we are. So there's 91, and you gotta make that field goal. There's 92, you gotta make that field goal, right? And then 93 comes, and the game, of course, is the win, right? And Matt Fryer catches that ball, that looping pass from Charlie Ward on the far sideline, going toward the Moore Center, and he just outruns Rohan Marley, who was pretty fast.
Yeah,
let me tell you about how fast Matt Fryer was.
Yeah,
and his son, by the way, also pretty speedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, we win that game and it's like the monkey off your back.
Yeah.
But I'll say leading into that game, the tension in Tallahassee was, I can't even describe it.
Yeah.
I can't describe it, because if you became a fan after we won a national title, then you don't really, I don't think you have a good idea of how much buildup there was getting to that first title. This is the first time, by the way, that I'm aware of, and I may be wrong about this. This is the first time, by the way, that the Marching Chiefs do a campus crawl and start and play throughout the campus on Friday night.
Yeah.
Going to dorms and waking people up and having crowds it's like the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
And people come out of their dorms and start following the Chiefs wherever they go. So to me, obviously that game is huge to me. As a Knoll, as a Chief, and understanding, you always, whenever you want to get to an end goal, I'm going to get philosophical on you, Ryan. Whenever you want to get to an end goal, there's always a stone in your shoe of some kind that you have to figure out how to get that stone out. And Miami was the little pebble at that point. Actually, they were more of a rock at that point. Now they're more of like a minor irritation.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a little scratch you got, outside. You just put some medicine on it. Imagine, Vince, I was thinking about this, just going through all these clips because we had new and old. Imagine if our only amazing clips were all in standard definition, like the Hurricanes.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Imagine if you would have had to pull out some beta tapes, some Betamax tapes, or some VHS tapes to be able to cobble this thing together. That would have taken you a lot longer time.
Yeah. Speaking of Miami, my number 2.
But you would have had some rings to wear, some dusty rings that you could wear.
Speaking of our friends from down south, sometimes as a fan, Vince, it's not so much what you do, it's the misery for another fan base that you really, really just soak yourself in.
Absolutely.
A clip I almost picked for this top 5, Vince, and I didn't, because I had the Jordan Travis one. I almost picked the 4th and 14.
Andrew Parchment.
Yeah, that was a hurdle, but that was, yes, we were pissing off that fan base, but it was still Jordan Travis. Parchment had to make the catch. It was a lot of skill involved. But sometimes luck is just on your side, and it's the right day at the right time. And I bring to you one of my all-time favorites, my number 2.
What a throw by Kaya on 4th down. It's blocked. It's no good. The nose blocked the PAT, and Badgley's streak ends at 72 in a row.
Is that DeMarcus Walker?
Yep.
Made the block. There's a couple of flags down. Let's check the markers, but the Canes are walking off. Nobody's been more automatic making PATs in college football than Michael Badgley.
Watch the hold. Little bit of maybe affects the rhythm there, but no question. It's DeMarcus Walker gets his hand on it and knocks that ball away. Talking about one of the best kickers in the country. How about
the trash?
First of all, be quiet.
Yeah.
Be quiet, Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah.
Just be quiet.
Vince.
Go ahead.
In my head, just keep in mind, Miami was actually doing pretty well that year at that time. And we were not. It was a typical Jimbo Fisher last half of his career at Florida State year. Winning the games that we had no business winning and losing the games that, we should have won. And I thought they were going to kick that field goal, and it felt like Miami was going to beat us that day. And so I remember I was just sitting there, Vince, I was at Halloween Horror Nights in a line for a haunted house, watching at the time through on my phone, which this is early days of streaming, but I was watching through the X1 Comcast app. So it was buffering a lot and had a lot of struggles, as Comcast would. But I was casually watching that play. I don't think any of us were watching that with like eager anticipation. It was a PAT. And when that got blocked, it was one of those moments where I just giggled. I was just tickled endlessly, knowing that there is no way now, no way that they're going to win this game. And we just stole a victory. And then right before I go into the haunted house, Vince, you see the trash raining down on the field from the Miami fans.
Right.
And later that night at Halloween Horror Nights, Vince, I saw like 3 or 4 Miami fans. And every single time I walked by going like this, and they just shook their heads.
Yeah. And they should.
Infinitely entertaining, not from what we did, but from what Miami just couldn't do, which is pull a win out. And my favorite thing is, it was cut from this clip, but they were like lining up to kick one of the best kickers in the country, 72 in a row. And when that happened, I'm like, when it's Florida State kickers, I'm always thinking like, shut up. Don't say, don't say that. Vince, where were you when this happened?
Oh man, I don't recall where I was. Sorry about that. I don't recall where I was. But what I do recall is exactly what you said. And that is, they could not pump this kicker up any more than they had the whole game, pretty much. Not just then, like the whole game.
Yeah.
And they kept doing it, and they kept doing it, and it's blocked. And of course, how many times have we seen that clip? It's blocked. It's blocked. It's blocked. Brad Kaya, I'm not sure if he had all his teeth at this point. He probably was missing teeth by this point. So that's also a good memory. That's not what we're talking about tonight, but knocking his teeth out was kind of good. Anytime you beat Miami, especially when they think there's something, which is often, is just great.
They were in the top 10, Vince, in that game. Okay,
so what year was that?
I believe that was 2016. If I were the same year, I think as the Orange Bowl. If I were to guess, because DeAndre Francois wasn't it Dalvin Cook's? Dalvin Cook was not at the game. I think at that point it was either Dalvin's last year or
the block at the Rock.
Yeah, 2016. Right?
2016. You're right. So let's just if we're gonna go down this route. Let's see here.
Joe Campbell South, by the way.
So let's see here. Look at Miami 2016. They beat Florida A&M. They beat Florida Atlantic. They beat App State. They
Big
beat
wins.
Georgia Tech. They lose to us. Then they lose to North Carolina.
As they would. Yeah.
They lose to Virginia Tech. They lose to Notre Dame. They beat Pittsburgh. They beat Virginia. They beat NC State. They beat Duke. They beat West Virginia. Oh, they beat West Virginia in a bowl game? They won a bowl game that year. So yeah, they lost 3 in a row then as a result of losing to us. So
now, pretty common occurrence. Very typical Miami overhype year. 3 games against teams that probably have no business being on the field with Miami, and they are overranked because of the 20-year-old history, and they play a real team and they get knocked off, and then they lose a bunch in a row, which, by the way, Vince, is exactly what I'm predicting this year. If you recall my top 10, my win-loss record for us is that they are undefeated coming into playing Florida State. We blow them out, and then they lose 3 in a row.
yeah, let me add something to that too. While I do agree with all of that, I do believe that Miami is better this year.
We'll see.
Better as a team, not better than Florida State. I believe that they are incrementally better than they were this.
Are they coached better though?
Well, no. I mean, until they get a new coach, they will not be coached better.
Yeah. Now, Vince, your number 2, I have on DVD and I still watch every year.
That's right. I have some.
My dad makes fun
not
of
so
me.
old.
Vince, my dad was at Florida State at the same time as you. He is what I consider a casual Florida State fan, which he watches 3 to 4 games a year, the rivalry games, the bowl game. But he checks in and checks out. But Noel through and through still teases me about watching this DVD every year. And I say, I don't care. So let's go.
Seminoles take over at the 43 of the Hokies, dropping Winky, looking Winky, wants to throw the knockout punch to Warwick. Warwick open, cannot make the catch, flags thrown at the 1. Touchdown, he did catch touchdown, he did catch it. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh, Peter Warwick, how'd you do that? I see you, Peter Warwick.
I see you, Peter Warwick.
I see you, Peter Warwick. How did you do that? How did
by
you
the way,
do
real
that?
quick, because I know this is your number 2. You don't know this. I turned 13 that year. This was the first Florida State game that I watched where I actually started that season. I mean, becoming just from like, I'm going to games with my dad because he's my dad and that's what you do. And he has it on the TV sometimes, Florida State games. To that was the first season, the 99 season, Vince, where I watched every game of the season, not because my dad was watching, but because I actually wanted to watch it, and I started to learn the rules of football, and I started to get into football, and I was at the right age where I'm headed into middle school, and your friends are watching college football. It was a very, very, I guess, developmental year where from that point on, Vince, I mean, I'm talking year 2000, I was following recruiting sites, and I was all in. So this was the first year, Vince, of Florida State fandom for me as a person, as my own individual. It's almost like when you go to church with your parents and then you decide to start going to church yourself. That was the first year I did that.
Yeah, it became yours, right? It wasn't something that was handed down to you or you're doing it because it was part of your family. It was something that became yours. I get that. Mm-hmm. So I've got so many memories about this game. And again, I keep going back to it's more than just about the win. Of course, the win is fantastic. And you know, we're beating the crap out of them. And then Michael Vick does what Michael Vick does. I don't
good game.
And I don't mean dogfighting. I mean, actually football stuff.
What a great game
so
overall.
It really was. And vivid memories for me because of what happened the year prior. The year prior, you know, Florida State goes to the Fiesta Bowl and loses to Tennessee because our quarterback is hurt. And so they lose the opportunity for that national title. And Florida State had the best, with the quarterback in play, Florida State had the best team.
They would have won it.
They would have won it. And they almost won it without him. So I'm still in the teaching mode. I'm still a teacher at this point. And I was so upset. I was so frustrated that we did not, cash in on the opportunity to win. As soon as the winter break was over, I made a phone call to a company called Bowl Games of America. And Bowl Games of America was the organization that put together all of the halftime performances for all the major bowl games. And I called them and I said, what do I have to do to get my organization, the band I was in charge of at the time, what do I have to do to get my band in the national championship game next year? Because I know Florida State's going to be in there. So they sent me the application packet, and it's all the stuff you got to fill out. And then you got to send audition tapes and all this stuff. So we did all that and we got picked to go. So
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah. So we got picked to go. And so then there's all this fundraising you got to do, right? It's always fundraising. So we get picked to go. And so we bus over there and my wife is with me. And the deal is, though, with the bands, depending on the bowl game, especially for the national championship game, they're not seating you in the stadium. You come in and you do the pregame and you do the halftime, but then they took us to like the basketball arena across the street to watch the game on a big screen. And so that's what happens. But before the game happened, I found some scalper tickets for my wife to go in to watch the game in the stadium because I had to be with my students. So I got tickets for her to go in and watch the game in the stadium to actually watch the game live while I'm with the students. And of course, we're watching the game in the basketball arena on this big screen. And I'm just loving life because, trust me, there were a lot of Gator fans in the group that I was in charge of at the time, the kids in Jacksonville area. There were a lot of Gator fans.
Yeah.
And so I'm just loving it. We're winning. And then Michael Vick starts to bring that team back. And of course, I'm getting it from all sides.
I know how you get during games too.
Yeah, and the kids are just letting me have it. And then Peter Warwick makes that catch, and then we end up going on to win the game. The ultimate memory I have about this game is as soon as the game was over, and I'm beside myself happy, I tell the chaperones that were in charge, that were there with me on the trip, get the kids back to the hotel. I'm going to Bourbon Street with my wife to have a good time. And so they take the kids. I go running out of this basketball arena. And this is before cell phones where you could know where people like physically were. I remember it was like a movie. You know the scene in Shawshank where there's the beach scene right at the end where they're going to see each other? This is me and my wife coming around a corner and seeing each other. It's like slow motion. And I'm running down the street. We did it. And big embrace. There should be music playing and the whole thing. And then we went and spent pretty much all night on Bourbon Street partying.
Would you say that's probably one of your top all-time life moments just in general?
I mean,
how can you be a national championship with your wife on Bourbon Street? That's really,
here's the thing too, is I have several friends of mine that are mixed marriages, and I don't mean racially, right? I mean rivalry-wise.
House divided, yeah.
But we don't have that. There is very few people in this world, I believe, that are deeper, passionate rivals than me, and my wife might be one of them. So I married right, and for us to have that moment, like I said, it is etched. It's etched. I wish at the time we had someone videotaping or videoing this.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a top moment. Obviously, national championship makes it even more so. But for me, Ryan, you know me, it's always been about the people and the moments that I'm sharing those things with.
This leads perfectly into my number one, Vince. And this wouldn't be, I don't think, anyone's number one. again, it goes back to reasons it's important to you, but not to anyone else. And that's what's important. So I told you a moment ago, for the 99 season, that was my first year of fandom. What you don't know is because the next year, they try, to go again, right, with Chris Weinke to win back to back, right? And they don't do it. So for me and my generation, whether you old guys like it or not, Chris Ricks represented the youthful spirit. Because keep in mind, Chris Weinke was, to me at the time, an old man. He was 28 years old going into the 2000 season. Chris Ricks comes in, spiked up hair, flashy, arrogant, very arrogant. I think we
business cards.
Yeah. And that was my quarterback. That was my first guy that I saw. Okay, now I'm really into the fandom. At this point, Vince, 2002, 2003, I've surpassed my father in my fandom. I'm watching more games than he is. I care more than my dad. So now it's mine, and I've gone insane as far as care about the program.
Right.
I'm going to set the stage here. I am in West Palm Beach with my aunt and uncle, and my other aunt and my other uncle. All are Florida grads. 2 of them teach at the University of Florida. One is a department head at University of Florida.
Mm.
And for those that you don't know, Palm Beach County is Gator Town. Like through and through. I don't know why, but you go into sports bars there, it's all Gators. Very similar to Jacksonville. And we're at their house. And it's one of those things, I'm 15 at this time. So I'm really coming into my own. And although everyone's watching the game, my dad and my aunts and everything are watching the game, in which case, like, they're having side conversations and having some drinks. And you can tell it's like 1A, them and their conversations, and 1B is the game. Whereas me, it's all me, like me in the game. We think this game is over, and then this happens.
Line of scrimmage to Florida State 48, moving right. A minute 8 to go, a minute 7. Knowles with 1 timeout. Here's the snap. Ricks against the 4-man rush. Flush to his right. Cocks the arm. He'll throw it toward the end zone. He's got PK Sam. Open. He makes the catch. Touchdown FSU. Touchdown PK Sam. 55 seconds left. Sam takes a touchdown catch from Ricks. It's 52 yards. 52 yards. Florida State leads.
Here's what's fun about this, Vince. Before it gets to the scene on the TV, when I see the catch, I get down on my 2 knees and I go like this. And seconds later, Chris Ricks is doing that same thing. And for a 15-year-old kid who you're around Gator fans, and everyone thought the game was over. In fact, Steve Spurrier had already been doused in Gatorade on the sideline. It was 4th and 20 or almost 20?
No, it was 4th and 14. This was the first 4th and 14 where Ricks hit Dominic Robinson on like a square in or something like that.
Yeah.
And that kept the drive alive.
But we're thinking, like, we're probably not winning this. And so did the Florida fans. It's so much so that my aunts and uncles were already like, sucks to be, Florida State fan, get back in your hole. And by the way, this was Ron Zook's final year and final game as Florida coach. But what was so amazing to me as a 15-year-old Ryan is that this is my first time with, like, I'm around a different fan base and we pull out the stealing win. Because up until this point, all I had seen is wide left and wide rights where we get screwed.
Yeah.
And this time I got to see the Florida fans get screwed. And it was so much fun being on my hands going like this. Oh, touchdown. And then them showing Chris Ricks. And for whatever reason, hate him. A lot of people do. I have great love and affinity for front flipping Chris Ricks into the end zone because he represented, like, the youthful energy and the arrogant, my generation, the millennial, like, generation, like, of a more swagger and that kind of thing. Like, as far as, like, non-deserved swagger. And so, Vince, this will forever be my number one because I was around family and I was my own fan and becoming my own man. And this was my first, like, I remember the rivalry win and being there. And that was important to me.
Yeah. Hey, I have no no problem with Chris Ricks at all. I mean, he's unfortunately he came in at a time where the coaching staff wasn't what it needed to be. And he was thrust into a position where he wasn't ready. He had talent. There's no doubt about it. But there was like another quarterback, Jared Moon or something. Jared Moon got like dismissed from the team or something like that.
No, it was Thorpe who was
no, Carfonso Thorpe was a wide receiver.
Sorry, it was the guy that got busted for gambling against betting against Florida State. McPherson.
Oh, Adrian McPherson.
McPherson, who was very talented and got busted for betting against Florida State in multiple games.
So I love Chris Ricks. I always have. I thought it was funny that he had a business card as a freshman that said, Chris Ricks, quarterback for Florida State University.
Yeah.
He did stuff that freshmen do, like they oversleep for classes and park in handicap spots, but he gets a little bit of a bad rap, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that he didn't have the right, I don't believe he had the right mentorship around him during that time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the 4th and 14 to D-Rob, and then watching Chris Ricks heave that ball, and the defender's right there. He just doesn't make a play. And then I don't know if I'm sure you have, Ryan.
Yeah, the dog biting.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, but have you listened to the Gator broadcast of that same play over and over again? Yeah. It's good. It's good.
But I love that PK Sam almost got bit by the dog as he's running by him. That dog was pissed.
Yeah, dog was really angry.
No, nothing will ever beat Ron Zook being covered in Gatorade, walking off with a loss. That was awesome, right?
That was Spurrier or Zook?
No, that was Ron Zook. That was Ron Zook. That was Vince. That was Ron Zook coming into his first coaching year.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it had not yet gone to Urban Meyer yet, and he was building. He could recruit the hell.
He could recruit,
but he couldn't coach.
No, but he could fight frat boys.
Yeah. Now, Vince, your number one's of course, like it's like my 1B. So, like, of course it is, and I actually have some fun memories and fun stories. But I'm gonna just go ahead and hit it. Let it speak for itself.
17 seconds, I formation now. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right, throws the pass on the other. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown FSU! Kelvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining. Jameis Winston with a precision pass to his favorite target in December and now in January. The Knowles have just gone 80 yards. 13 seconds remain. 33-31 with a point after touchdown.
I could still, Vince, this is the only one, and like we've seen some good games the last couple of years. This one, I can still feel how I felt at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because, being there for a lot of, not obviously all of Bobby's tenure, but for a lot of the dynasty, and being, having Bobby so ingrained in me, and wondering if we were ever going to be able to get back to where, the pinnacle, if another coach was going to be able to do that, it was almost like an understanding that it's not it doesn't matter who the coach it is. It obviously does matter who the coach is. But if you get the right coach in this program, with this support, with this rabid fan base, with this cachet, with this history, with this dynasty that backs it up as a foundation, if you get the right people in place, there is no stopping this program. And so to see them cap that off, I'll let you go because I have some more memories about this game.
This is the only game, Vince, to this day I still actually get choked up about and tear up when I rewatch stuff. And it comes down to a very simple fact. The first game season I ever cared about was the national championship year. And then I had to live from going from, oh, this is what it always is. And because you read about and have your dad tells you about all these games that Florida State's always been good and they always will be good. And then finally, when I get to be an 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old guy, and during that period, we suck. Like, just being frank, we suck.
You lose to Wake Forest 30-0.
And I'm sitting to myself, I'm like, man, like, at that time, I know this is ridiculous, but in that time, I'm thinking there's no bigger Florida State fan than me. I had a lot of roommates and friends that were Florida State fans that did not even close to follow it as close as I did, read the newspapers. I mean, anything I can get my hands on, I was getting my hands on. And to finally feel it, and it started with that Greg Reed play I played earlier, where I was like, okay, I feel like we're getting somewhere. And then we had the 2012 year where I felt like that was going to be the year we're back. And it was not a disappointment, but it was kind of like we didn't meet expectations.
No, the deal with 2012, Ryan, is that Jimbo wasn't ready for the spotlight yet.
Yeah, we had some questionable calls in that year. And I didn't expect it in 2013. In fact, I remember sitting at a sports bar with my friends with the Pitt game saying, like, well, let's see how this freshman goes. Like, we'll see how it goes. And then just being delighted all year. I mean, we were spoiled that year. It was.
We really were.
Unlike Vince, I'm going to say this, and you tell me if it's blasphemy, an effortlessness even more so than 93 or 99, in which case no game was in question. We didn't have to sweat at all. And at most games were just an absolute destruction, the likes of which I had never seen in college football as a fan. So that when we made it to the national championship, if you and I had been friends and already knew each other at that time, Vince, I told no less than 8 people to 10 people at this time that I was friends with. Going into that weekend, I said, I am going to appreciate every drop, every second, every moment of this game. I'm not going to look past it. I'm not going to let the moment get the best of me. I'm going to sincerely appreciate this moment because based on what I've seen in the last 13 years, I never know if it's ever going to happen again because it's not promised.
Yeah.
And I had a house party with 14 people in my house, Vince. And I did that for a reason. It's because I truly wanted to make it, and I had never thrown a house party like that, a celebration of no matter what happens in this game, even if we lose, I just appreciate that we finally made it back after all these years. And Vince, when we won that game, I was the only person in that room for the next 20 minutes that bawled my eyes out, sitting, and I wasn't even drunk. That's amazing. I couldn't even drink because I was that uptight the whole game because I wanted it so bad that I was sitting Indian style while everyone was like saying bye and heading back to their cars and everything, that I was crying. And Vince, I stayed up and I had to work the next day. I stayed up till 3 a.m. and I watched 3 Sports Centers in a row.
Which was on repeat.
College final. To relive it over and over and over and over again. And I probably cried a handful more times that night. And I remember waking up that next morning saying, I am so happy that I went into that game with a mindset that I will never, ever take this game for granted. And I will appreciate everything that happened tonight. And I think that's why it still hits me to this day. It's because as a young man, you're thinking this will always be good times. We're going to win it. Who knows, every year. And when you realize that how rare it is to win a national championship, when it happens to you, probably very similar to how you felt in 93, Vince. It's overwhelming. It's like I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it. And I rode that momentum probably till 2015 and 2016 as far as like, man, what a great championship. And I'd never, ever will forget it. I was with my wife. It was our first year married, Vince. We got married. I don't know if you know this or not, but we got married February 14th of 2014, which was 3 weeks after the national championship or something. And so there was a lot going on in my life. So it's like life events, Florida State winning the title. And I always tell Kristen, I was like, 2014 was our year, man. we got married. We got we moved back to Tallahassee. We had lived in Jacksonville. We moved back to Tallahassee so I could finish and go back to school and finish my undergrad. So there was a lot happening to me that year. And so it's just this whole ball of emotion that was, I really feel like shown in this one moment, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact you bring up, the whole year, to savor the whole year, 93 wasn't that way. Like, there were some close games.
Yeah.
99 was more of that, right? And wire to wire, first team ever to do it. But there were some closer games too.
Yeah.
So, but 2013 was just a complete, run roughshod over the schedule. And regardless of any of the lists you see about the greatest teams of all time, a lot of times Florida State 2013 doesn't get the due it should get because of Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason they don't.
Well,
that's not true.
Soon, by the way, that could start to turn soon.
It's because of Jameis Winston and because the faulty logic about the conference. Okay. There are, and I don't want to get into a real deep discussion about this, but every conference is top heavy, every one of them. And so, that because of that, Florida State doesn't get its due. It is the most prolific college football team that's ever been assembled. And I would put them up against any of them. I would put them up against 2001 Miami.
Joe Burrow.
And I would put them up against the LSU team. I'm not saying they would win them all, but for people to say that they would not, I'm telling you, this team, everybody on the starting roster was an NFL player.
First team defense and offense, every player.
Come on, man.
Many of them still in the league.
Anybody that doesn't list this 2013 team in the top 5 at the least of the greatest college football teams of all time is not, it's just disingenuous. If they're not your number 1, okay, I get it. But to put them either not on the list or number 12 is ridiculous. So 2013, this game is in California.
Yep.
And it's a lot more expensive to go to. And I did not have, I could not figure out a way financially to make this happen. But toward, as the game started to get closer and closer, all of a sudden I had access to a ticket if I wanted it. And then also I had access to a place to stay if I wanted to get out, if I could find a way to get out there. So I had 3 pieces of the puzzle or 2 of the 3 pieces of the puzzle solved.
Yep.
I had a ticket and I had a place to stay. What I did not have is the transportation. And if you recall at that time, there were a lot of flight problems because of massive storms. And there were people that could not get to the game. And I wasn't one. I didn't end up trying to go, but there were people that were trying to fly out there that got stuck in Texas because of storms and could not make it to the game. So I am bummed. There's a little bit of regret there because I was not at that game. But I do have a core memory that's locked deep inside of me. We are at my in-laws' house. And we're at my in-laws' house because the house we live in now is currently being built. And so we were living with my in-laws at the time, just like, what you do when you're trying to save some money. The in-laws are gracious enough to let us live there. And so my girls are there, and understand my girls are diehard Noles, but my first daughter was born in 2001. So after a championship, my second daughter is born in 2005, way after a championship. And in the meantime, there's a lot of going on.
Yeah.
And so they love the Noles, but they've known a lot of heartache. So we're at my in-laws' house and we're watching this game, and it's, the first half isn't going so well, and the towels and all this other nonsense we all know about after the fact. But it's coming down to the bare end of it, and we pull the game out, and I just remember like this core memory. Again, this is me. This is typically what happens when we win a title. I always do the same thing, kind of like you. And I always say, we did it. We, right? That's why I love this fan base. We did it. Jump up. We did it. And I just recall my daughters just being beside themselves with joy. And, my one daughter is, she's 12 at the time. And my younger daughter is 7, I guess, maybe 6 or 7. And so much so that my father-in-law picks up my older daughter, and he's jumping up and down with her in the living room as we're just celebrating, as a family, this memory that we'll always have for the rest of our lives.
And I'm sure, Vince, it means even more based on the hardship that was the next year for you during the Rose Bowl, the time, what you were going through kind of at that time. So that was a big memory for you because it was everyone, and in happy times and not in those, any kind of unique circumstances. And so what's funny about that is all I can think about is like Juliana was the age I was when I was with my dad watching the 99 championship. And what I love about this is, Vince, in the last 2 years, this is the first time they've got to see as an adult person or becoming adult people coming into their adulthood, seeing the first climb that they've seen from struggle and destitute of Willie Taggart era to this. And that's why I think it hit extra hard for them when we didn't get selected for the college football playoff, is because they felt, and so did we, that this was their time. This was their moment of their adulthood, that it's time. Now, Vince, what I do want to say real quick, I'm not one to believe in fate. I'm a man of faith and a man of thinking everything happens for a reason. That's how I've always kind of lived my life. I'm just saying that this college football season, the national championship's in Atlanta, Vince. And what a perfect moment it would be if, following very much so like 2012 was, and just like 1998 was, Vince, if we go from expectations of a title and letdown to we make it. Not saying it's going to happen, but what a special moment it would be if you got to spend time with me, your daughters, your wife in Atlanta this year and have them get their first adulthood national championship. That was your 1999 championship, as a full-grown adult, remembering everything, and was my 2013 championship. That moment of the build back up to it, it would be very special to them, and I kind of hope that for them, so they can feel it from their own self as an adult.
Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, national titles are like, they're fleeting. And Bama went on a run, and it will, never happen again.
No, not in this era.
In my opinion, it will never happen.
Now it's a 12-team playoff. No.
So they're fleeting, and when you get the opportunity to cash one in, to not be allowed to try to cash one in is it's ridiculous, and it's evil to a degree with all the work that they put in. So much so, we were saying, like, during the reveal of who the 4 teams were going to be this past season, you and I did that show, right, live. And in the meantime, all 425 of the marching Chiefs are bussing back from the ACC title game and they find out that they got screwed while they're on the bus together.
Yeah.
And it's a stark, and you know, it's just football. I get it, people. You know, it's like making a big deal out of this, but understand, like, this is, you know, especially as a student, those kids put their heart and soul into that, and so they do feel like that got ripped out from them. Not just the team. That group of kids feel like they got ripped. It's amazing. You're right. If it works out this season, and the team, you know, gets through some bumpy spots at the beginning because of new players and whatever, and are able to put themselves in a position, how amazing would it be? Because it is fleeting. And we are fortunate and blessed to have 3 to our name. And I do believe there are going to be more. I do. But yeah, Atlanta, I would love to think about, how about this, Ryan? Think about the Garnet and Old meetup that would happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, Atlanta's right around the corner. We don't even have to drive far. And how cool!
And we got Doug Rohan to get us out of trouble.
And Vince, just imagine your oldest daughter's final year at Florida State ending with a national championship. That would be special for her. I know it would be special.
I hope that it happens. And there's so many things that play into it, but she's had a lot of great memories already, right? Both as a kid in the family, right? But also as a member of the Chiefs. She's had a lot of great memories and being able to see this thing climb. So I do hope she gets to cap it off. I really do. But I'm not going to lament if she doesn't, because it's still been an amazing thing.
Yeah. And I'm going to leave this with Vince. A quote from Mike Norvell to a potential transfer, a potential recruit.
We didn't talk about this yet, but yeah.
We're going to talk about it on the Garnet Old Show, but I'm going to leave this thought with this year. The mentality is, I'm going to win with or without you. We are at the point where Mike Norvell, and you see by way of the transfer portal and how quiet it was, Mike Norvell, the coach, believes that the talent on this team is what he needs to win right now, or else we would have seen a deluge of players. And God knows we haven't. Mike Norvell hasn't been scared of using the portal, and so how special it would be. And Vince, I think we're all going to go into this season, the fandom as a whole, in a revenge. Screw you, ESPN, screw everyone who doubted us mentality, and how special it would be if we were the ones to win the inaugural first 12-team playoff and win the national championship, to show the world that how much more of a travesty last year was, and make up for that. And that's what I'm really hoping for. Now, it might not happen, but I hope for it. And Vince, secondly, just want to remind everyone, this week, just like I said during the 2013 National Championship, enjoy every minute, the full reveal of EA Sports College Football, I'm here to tell you, after 10 years and me thinking it would never come back, and I'm telling you, I'm a gamer. Vince is not so much a gamer. He loves college football, and he's played college football video games, but he's not the gamer. I'm a gamer. It was my favorite game of all time. I bought it every year. It was the one game I look forward to and pre-ordered every single year. To know that it's coming back, and to know that the full reveal is this week, and that we're only 2 months away from playing it, enjoy every second of it, because who knows, some law could pass next year, some wonky thing could happen where, sorry, it's taken away after only 1 year being out. Enjoy it, because I'm going to lose my shit a little bit when that trailer drops. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I've already started the countdown here when I'm going to get my console.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to play on the Wii. So I got to get that done, and it is going to be exciting. And I'm going to play a lot. I'm going to lose a lot of sleep playing that game. And back to Atlanta, Ryan. What are the chances of getting you up to Atlanta for the meet and greet that Doug Rohan's putting together?
It's possible, and there might be something else surrounding Atlanta that might ironically line up with me needing to be in Atlanta to check things out in certain aspects that I'm not willing to share yet.
Absolutely. So you've heard it here right now. I am working right now, and Ryan might be as well, working to get to the Atlanta area Seminole meet and greet that Doug Rohan is putting on. It's going to be on June 29th.
How funny would that be, right?
I'm working to get some Garnet and Old presents there.
And if certain things happen, and again, I told my wife this before she went to work. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen, kind of thing. How funny would it be if the year that the national championship is in Atlanta?
Don't say the words. Just let it go, man.
I'm just saying, if that were to happen with the confluence of events that could potentially be happening with me, it would mean the world.
Amazingness.
Sure.
Yeah, it would be great.
It's been a long show, Vince, but I think
it really.
I don't know about you, but for our members, I would say, would you agree, Vince, that these kind of conversations are the reason we started doing the show?
Yes, this conversation right here is the reason why people told us at work to take it to the internet, and we're tired of hearing it. So that's exactly what happened.
And I know a lot of our members are probably doing Mother's Day things and getting ready for work, and they'll be able to watch this, during the week. And then a week from now, we'll make it public for everyone. And I hope all of you enjoy and can feel. The one thing I always hope from this channel, Vince, is that people can tell we're not just shills out here doing a show because we want like some kind of number or something. We care. And I hope the stories that we told tonight show everyone that watches the show how much it means to us and how lucky we feel to be able to do a show that we get to talk about this and people actually care to listen.
Yeah, and that being said, Ryan, who's ever watching this show after the fact, after it's published, share your memories in the comments.
Yeah, we want
to share them in the comments. I want to hear about them. You hear me talk about my memories all the time. I want to hear other people's memories too. It makes me feel connected to the community, and that's again, I said it multiple times during this show. How blessed are we to be a part of this fan base and be able to share these kind of memories.
I think that will wrap her up. Thank you, everyone, for watching the video who is a member and supporting Garnet and Old. We're here for you guys, man. We started this out for Vince and I, but now we love that you guys join us every single week and appreciate you for supporting our show. But till next time, till this Thursday at 7, Garnet and Old, no inside info, no context, no problem. Screw ESPN and
send Chiefs all the damn time.
Go Noles.
Go Noles.